All right, today we're going to talk about the best free rack extensions available. And this is something that I wanted to put out right now because some of these have been free for a long time or forever, but some of them have recently become free. And with the rollout of VSTs, I wanted to make sure that you were aware of some of these deals and you got them before things changed, or if anything changes. I don't know if things will change with the prop shop, but these are my favorite 5-6 free rack extensions, and I think you should pick them up. They're free, they cost nothing. Go to the prop shop, pick them up now before anything changes. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the T2 phaser by That Music Company. I bought this back when you had to pay for it. It's a great phaser. It gives you a ton of control. It's got some retro sounds to it, or you can do a more modern and subtle sound. It has an overdrive, which is definitely a little harsh for my tastes. I like to use a different distortion going in if needed. It's got a lot of phaser controls, a lot of great presets, and unlike the stock phaser and Reason, it comes with the dry wet knob, which is great because that means that you can put it as an insert, or you can have it all wet and have it as a send. But this is a great phaser, and actually right now I believe all of That Music Company's plugins are free, rack extensions, so they're Distortion Chain and Mr. Overdrive. I've used Mr. Overdrive. I haven't used Distort Chain yet, but it's really good. They just make great sounding effects, so you should go ahead and get those right now. Next, we're going to the RE180 by Red Rock Sound, and this thing is awesome if you're doing CV controls. Basically, what it does is it acts like a compressor, but with CV voltage. So you send a signal to it, and you can control the threshold and the attack and the release. And this gauge will light up here, and it will, depending on the strength of the CV signal, and it will then create sort of a gate at that amount. If we flip it around, it does it to audio. So you put the audio source in, and it converts it to a CV gate, which can be super powerful for, you can use it for side chaining because that's what it does. If your compressor doesn't necessarily have have the settings you want, but you can really use it to trigger all sorts of effects. So like you can have it where let's say what you could do is when a sound goes above a certain threshold that you set, it sends out a CV, the RE180 sends out a CV signal to like a distortion unit to turn up the distortion, so louder notes will be even more distorted. Or when the sound hits a certain peak or threshold, a filter or a phaser will sweep back and forth. And this is just a super powerful tool for sound design and Reason. It's limited really only by your imagination. I'd totally recommend getting it and playing around with it. The next one is the TMA9 Commentator by Jiggery Pokery. It sounds boring, but to me this is a lifesaver. Basically what it does is it's just a notepad, but it's a notepad in your rack. So if you have to leave a session and stop recording, you can just leave notes to yourself for where you need to pick up. Or if you're sharing files with a friend, you can leave notes. It's just really helpful to be able to leave notes so you can remember where you picked up. Or if you're done with a song but you did something weird, you can leave a note to future self. There's a few different sizes of this. There's I think a 1 rack unit, a 4 rack unit, and a 9 rack unit. Doesn't really matter. It's just however much space you need. You could also put lyrics in here if you wanted, so that you could sing along. I like it. The next one is the Effector Silencer Noise Gate by Kuassa. And yeah, there's a noise gate in Reason's mixer channels, but this is really helpful on inserts. If you want to be using a noise gate before or between certain effects. Like an example of this could be maybe you have like a reverb that you then want to silence so the tail isn't too long before you put it into a delay. Or you've got a distortion, a really distorted guitar, and you are running it into a delay or a reverb or whatever, and you don't want the loudness between notes to go through it. You only want the really amplified notes. This is really helpful. It's just a great utility to have. Totally get it. The next one is the AB Audio CV Switch by Pongasoft, and this really allows you to easily do A/B testing. Basically, you can have your song plugged into side A, and then you can have a reference track plugged into switch B, and you can just go click the knob and it switches right back and forth between the two. You can also do this between two versions of your mix. It's just a really helpful tool to have. If you want to easily do mid-side processing, or as easy as possible, the RE181 mid-side audio converter is a great free choice. Basically, you plug the mids into one side, the sides into the other. You run them each through their own separate effects chain, and then you put them back in. There's definitely more powerful ways of doing this, but if you want a cheap and free way, the RE181 is just a great way of getting you in the door. But don't mess things up with mid-side, because it's not tricky, but you can ruin a mix pretty quickly. And finally, the granddaddy of them all, the Softube saturation knob. I think everybody knows this is pretty much a must-have free plugin. It just makes everything sound better, whether you put it on just one or two, or if you want to crank it up and get some serious grit and distortion, this is for you. So, hope you enjoyed this. Go ahead, download these plugins now, these rack extensions, because they're great. Can't wait to be playing with Reason 9.5.